The 10-Minute Talent Rant is live. I'm James Hornick, joined by Jeff Smith, and we are on the clock. The 10-Minute Talent Rant is our ongoing series where we break down things that are broken in the talent acquisition hiring space, maybe even pitch a solution or two. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to HireWell's YouTube channel and the Talent Insights podcast, where you can get all of our episodes. This week's topic, very relevant, especially to Jeff right now. Why is paternity leave so short or non-existent? And I'll lay it up to you. Everyone out there. Jeff is once again a father. I guess he hasn't stopped being a father. Number 2 just came last week, and he is on paternity leave right now. And I gave him 2 months to cancel. We can find someone else to do this when this happened. But he insisted to do the show only if he's allowed to rant on paternity leave.
I was gonna say my grand scheme for this, to be totally honest, was to just dunk on the whole thing and sabotage it and bring both of my kids down during this and see like your head explode. But
I got the end broadcast button on quick. I can hit that real fast. Anyways.
Yeah. Our partner in crime, Dawn, like her text just said, do it.
All right. Let's get into it, though. So I think a different format for this week, since we haven't had a lot of time to prep. You've got some ideas. I've got some ideas. Why don't you just go? Floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of an excuse to kind of hide down here for 15 minutes, so I appreciate that. I just kind of wanted to talk a lot about having my first child and now my second child, and like some of the pressures that kind of come along with, being, a father in today's like gender norm culture, and why companies like want to and should think about this more holistically. So like, I look at it this way, as a male and as a father, like there's all this like pressure to provide from gender norms, like monetarily. There's like this whole idea that, maternity leave is more important or should be, longer than paternity leave. It kind of, like, I feel like it perpetuates this cycle of like kids waiting for dad to come home from work and having no time to bond. And like, then they grow old and it just kind of wash and repeat. The whole cycle kind of, just goes back on top of itself. So like, I find myself like it's encouraged me to be more emotionally unavailable. And it also like, it makes more time in the corporate culture. Like from a luck perspective, like you're just kind of around at the right time and right place in the workplace. And it's simply due to FaceTime. So like, I feel like I do a fraction of the work that my wife does with the kids, and like my professional productivity would suffer from it. And like, if it was the other way around, Carrie would be killing the game professionally. So I think it's kind of one of these things where having that time to like unwind, to totally unplug, to like get yourself like emotionally available to your kids is like super important.
Good start. I like where we're going with this. And it's going to dovetail perfectly into my segment of the show here. It's all about the wage gap. Straight up. Wage gap in the U.S. right now, 81 cents on the dollar is what women make compared to what men make. Decades ago, it was worse. We've come a long way. It used to be far worse than that. There's a lot of contributing factors around bias, around sexism, and those things still exist. But at this point, we've evolved to the point where the number one, by far, biggest contributor to the wage gap is raising kids. And the gender norms where women are forced to raise kids, or I shouldn't say forced, but a lot of times are in a position where it's just, in your situation, kind of the same thing. Because of that, there's, anytime you're raising a family, you're not being promoted, you're not in the office, you're not doing all the things that could further your career. What's the proof of this, you say? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked this. The wage gap for women who did not raise children, who didn't have that time missed, is 96 cents on the dollar.
It's amazing.
So 96 cents versus 81 cents, it's an enormous difference. And when you think about it, the gap is really between women who raise children and everybody else. You can argue it's by choice, because a lot of people choose to take time off, and that's a conscious decision. They want to raise their family. And they know they can potentially hold their careers back. But how does this ultimately tie back to paternity leave, you ask? Because it's not always a choice. when you're setting the expectation up front that women are allowed a lot of time off and men aren't, you're automatically from the very start kind of setting an expectation and putting yourself and your family into a pattern where the woman is taking more time off, and you just kind of flows into that. I think that, it reinforces that gender norm stereotyping, kind of like you said, which is a lot of times why we're here. Now, is there a case study? Glad you asked that as well too. Iceland. This happened in Iceland.
You're not letting me even ask. You're not even letting me do in the lead, but keep going.
Yeah. I didn't know if you're going to, so I just want to make sure I get these points out. Iceland used to look a lot like the US. It used to be 81 cents on the dollar. Back in the 80s and 90s, they did a lot of progressive things in terms of making 3-month maternity leave. Then they made it 6 months mandatory. So that was kind of everywhere. The issue was it didn't do anything to the wage gap. So it was still the same in the early 2000s, the same 81 cents it was here basically in the US. Then they did something really crazy. They made 6-month paternity leave for men. So what that was, and they made it so, use it or lose it type thing. So it encouraged men to take that time off, kind of taking down those gender norms. And what did that end up doing to the wage gap? 90 cents on the dollar, up from 81 cents. Yeah. So everything you said is completely true. And just kind of looking at the data and stuff's out there. Now, the other question you're asked, James, wow, you did a lot of research on this. How do you come up with all this? Because I watched the Explain special on Netflix, which lays it all out there. I'm not a content thief. I'm going to cite my sources. But yeah, but I guess tying it all back, though, there's a lot of companies out there that place a high emphasis on diversity and inclusion initiatives, and the wage gap is a huge part of that. And if you are, so we always like to talk about takeaways and stuff like that on the show. One takeaway, if your company is prioritizing diversity and inclusion, you feel really strongly about the wage gap and those types of things, you have to give more paternity leave. That is the fix. Yep. And, the unfortunate thing is it kind of has to be system wide. It has to be across the country. One company doing it's not going to make the dent. But if it's something that everyone adopts, then a lot of that goes away. So it is the single biggest organic avenue for women to enter into leadership roles, into roles of more responsibility. And like you said, they've already earned it, and it literally is by default and perpetuated by shorter paternity leave in instances where they're just not around because they're forced into that role. Yep. Yeah. So, I'm in the situation now, right? It's one of these, I'm fortunate. I can go to our boss. I don't know how much he loves it or not, but I can say something to the effect of I think that this is what I'm going to take off. I'll keep you posted. And the running joke is I'm never around in February because I either have some sort of calamity or a child. But I feel like, in seriousness, I feel like I'm a better person when I come back to work. And I also like the idea that not only the females, but my entire team, that works underneath my silo is getting the opportunity to run things while I'm out. The world isn't falling down at Hirewell because I'm out on, paternity for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Right. Yep. So. All right, we're way under, which is great because we didn't we can talk another minute here if you want to about how things are going there. You can bring your kids on the show if you'd like. Yeah, well, I would have loved to have done that, but that will require me to get up, go, and I don't have the energy to do so right now. All right, we'll wrap this one up then. What's that? Do we have a fix other than just offer more paternity leave? I honestly, I think it's like I said, the fix is it has to be universal. Like the Iceland examples, because the government stepped in and said, this is how it's going to be for everywhere. Right. So that's your wage gap fix. I think that it just needs, I think the fix is people being more aware of it and talking about it more and being a little more everyone's consciousness that if you're not offering paternity leave, you are actively contributing to inequity. And if you're aware of that, then you can at least start making some informed decisions on it. So sure. Anyway. We are short on clock, so that is a wrap for the week. Thanks for tuning in to the 10-Minute Talent Rant, part of the Talent Insights series, which is always available for replay on Hirewell's YouTube channel, as well as the Talent Insights podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. Jeff, thanks again, and congrats again. Everyone
Thanks,
out there,
James.
see you soon.